Cool. I think we'll get started then. If you've just joined, welcome, and feel free to introduce yourself. Just come off mute or pop in the chat who you are, where you're calling from. But the session today is about social media and blogs, and it's a Results UK training session that's part of our autumn training programme. It's the penultimate one, actually. So the final session will be on Saturday in Manchester. If you haven't already seen an email to say that there are still a couple of places available, please do just drop us an email or check online if you would like to come along to that session on Saturday. So as I said, it's in Manchester, and we'll be looking at education and advocacy and taking your advocacy to the next level. We can put a link in the chat in a bit. But today we're focusing on social media and advocacy and blogs. So hopefully it'll be a chance to go over some basics. We've tried to cater for people from very different experiences, not really sure how social media works, of using it to influence decision makers and reach out and connect with other people. So it should be a bit of a mix, and also hopefully there's a bit of a mix of you as well, so that you can learn from each other and bring your experiences to the training as well. So we'll go through a bit of a presentation on what social media is and how it can be used in Results. And then the main kind of part that we're hoping you'll get the most from will be kind of real life scenarios of this is an advocacy kind of task or something that you might come across doing in Results, and step by step, what would you do and how would you bring that into the world of social media and blogs to strengthen maybe other advocacy activities you're doing. So I'm going to just start with some quick housekeeping, which I should have done before, but if you keep yourself on mute when you're not intending to speak, but feel free to come off mute at any point to chat, speak to others. We are recording this session so that hopefully it can be used as a resource in the future, but if you'd prefer not to have your camera on, that's fine. When we do the activity, we'll probably go in breakouts, and it'd be nice then if you feel comfortable to turn your camera on, just so that it can be a bit more personal with each other. And it's an open, inclusive space, so just a reminder to be respectful to each other's points of view and comments. And if you want to put anything in the chat box at any time, that's at the bottom as well. Perfect. So we'll start with what is social media. It's a bit of a hard one to condense, but I quite like this statement, which is social media refers to the means of interactions among people in which they create, share, and or exchange information and ideas in virtual communities and networks. So there are lots of different social media sites. Ones on this slide, so we've got Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. They're the ones we'll talk about mostly today because they're the ones we use mostly at Results. But there's also TikTok, LinkedIn, and other sites. So as the description says, it's an online platform and a space where you can share your thoughts, ideas, and even medium what's going on in the world with others. And you can use it as a tool to raise awareness and communicate with others online as well. So social media is used by many different people, different ages, different demographics all over the world. But Twitter is predominantly users who are 25 to 35 years old. And Twitter short posts, so 280 characters in a tweet, which you can then add on to each other to have a thread. And you can share photos, videos, and graphics. Facebook is predominantly used by people who are 35 to 44, and that allows you to have longer posts and photos as well. And Instagram's got a much younger demographic, typically of under 34 years, and the content on Instagram's very visual, so it's a visual platform where how things look a lot more important than maybe the other platforms. So can we go on to the next slide, please? So why use social media as a results advocate and in your groups if you're part of a results group, but also this applies if you're kind of an individual campaigner hoping to use social media. So it's a way to reach decision makers first and foremost in terms of advocacy, and we'll go through that a bit more in a bit. And so you can get the attention of influential figures and decision makers by, for example, tagging them or building relationships with your MP, or kind of reiterating a relationship you already have with your MP through social media and sharing your message with those in power. It's also a good way to share what's going on in your group and reach potential new volunteers. So perhaps to gather interest in your advocacy and in your group's activities. And you may want to use it as a way to build bridges between your group or yourself and other like-minded people. So you can, that idea of kind of building a community or network can really be used on social media. So it doesn't necessarily have to be decision makers. It could be building links with people that then make your advocacy more powerful because there's more of you or more like-minded people that you could reach out to for support. It's a good way to share what's going on in your group, like events, or if you've written a blog, or if you've got a fundraising thing coming up, and also to celebrate what you're up to. Another thing that is, I suppose, a benefit of being involved with results generally is that it's yet another skill that you could gain through being a volunteer and through, so using social media, creating content, having an account and a profile that's not a personal one, but more kind of organizational, is a really good transferable skill that you could use for future, a transferable skill that might be useful for other things. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So this is just a brief thing about how to set up an account. So for those of you who haven't done it specifically kind of within results or within advocacy. So what we're talking about here isn't being yourself on Twitter, but being part of kind of an account that, say, for example, called Results London or Results Bristol or whatever it might be. But this would be, as a group, you could set up an email address so that then you can pass that on to other members in the future. And you just go to the site, so Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and it always comes up with quite a clear sign up here. You can sign up. You'll be asked for date of birth, name, and contact details. And then just remember to keep a secure record of your login for future members. So that's how to set up and run an account as kind of a group. We also would recommend that you make a logo or differentiate yourself. I think that's on the next slide, please. So distinguish yourself from Results UK, because of course we have social media accounts that are run by staff with the Results logo. So it's important that what you're creating and putting your time into is clear that it's you, that it's your efforts. So we'd recommend making a logo that says, for example, Results Manchester, Results Cheshire Group, or Results Brighton have put like a little skyline of Brighton and some seagulls. So just to make it clear that this is coming from you as a group and not from us. Obviously, some of the things that we'll go over today, you could post about as an individual. So if you personally wanted to tweet and tag your MP because you know that they'd recognize your name and you want that individual connection, you can do that as well. Like, by all means, use your account obviously as you like. But what we're talking about mainly here is if you're running it as a group, or you want kind of to be using the results profile as your way into advocacy on social media. If we go on to the next slide, please. So what kind of things could you post? Well, images and graphics are always a good thing to add. It just makes it a bit more visual. So on Twitter, for example, you can add a picture. You can also add in a description of the picture so that people can use read what's in the picture if they can't see the image. You could have, for example, photos from events, photos from Results UK that we've shared. You're welcome to use those. You can always reach out to get the correct caption and credits. Group members and activities, images of people with lived experience of the issue that you might be talking about. And then also you can create things on, so there are 2 sites, and don't worry, we will send around resources later that's got this written down, but Canva is one that we use a lot. So that's a free site where you can get lots of templates, copy in text, copy in different shapes, kind of get those little animated cartoon people waving their hands and that sort of thing, if you wanted to. So the 3 things we say to remember, and this isn't just for social media, but generally, is consent. So making sure that you've got consent for any image, any person in the image that you're sharing, even if it's group members, just making sure that they're happy to have a photo of themselves on social media. Crediting the image correctly, so especially if you're using something from another organization, it's really important to make sure that they're properly credited. And a caption, because an image without context isn't going to be as powerful as an image with that context. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so other things you could share, so the campaign actions, advocacy actions you've done, events, stories of people with the experience that you've used, that you're talking about in that campaign. And there's also international days and moments. So for example, World TB Day in March, we've got World Food Day coming up. And some of these are quite a global movement. So like the UN or other global organizations will produce content and a theme. So they'll make something called the social media toolkit that usually contains some pictures, some messages, some draft tweets. And you could either use those or adapt them. But the main thing is if you're using the hashtag, like hashtag World TB Day, that's part of a global moment kind of on social media to push a certain message. And then also sharing blogs and media work that you've done, or commenting or sharing international development news. Okay, if we go on to the next slide, please. So reaching decision makers with social media. I think since COVID, it's actually become more common to use social media as a way of influencing. It was common before, but now we see, for example, and this may not just be COVID, this may be for other reasons, but we've seen the government announce decisions on Twitter. So when nutrition funding, I believe it was nutrition funding last year was announced, the first place we saw that, and the link that was referred to on other government sites was a tweet from an MP, from a minister at the time with that decision. So that of course means that that platform is then more important because that's the platform that's being used to make a decision. And when that's fresh news, that can then be a place that you either comment on the tweet or you share it. You can share it with your own comment, or tag other people to make them aware of it. And as well as that, you can interact with politicians and decision makers. So for example, when we go to an advocacy day in Westminster in person, which we've luckily managed to do this year, before some campaigners went, they tagged the MP to say, we're going to be in this room later talking about the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB and malaria. We really hope that you're going to come and meet us. And that can be a way, just like a phone call, but actually Twitter can be that kind of instant response communication mechanism to reach a decision maker. The other way that it can be that you could use it isn't just reaching them, but kind of seeing where they're at. So looking at, say, your MP's social media accounts, what are they sharing? What are they talking about? What are they maybe replying to, or more engaged with, and that can help, as well as using other sites with records from Parliament, that can help you gain an idea of what they're interested in and what you might have leverage. For example, in saying, well, I saw that you shared this article, or that you were interested in this, that's linked to what I want to talk to you about. So yeah, that can be one. So you can use social media to see reviews, reach out to people, comment on their content. Be careful. So if you're commenting on your MP's tweets, for example, just be careful not to do it so much or in a negative way that it could be seen that you're kind of trolling them. But also, especially if you're using a result, so something under the results banner, the results logo, you must stay non-party political. So that's a really important thing to remember, especially on social media, where your instinct might be to share a tweet and share a comment. You need to kind of take a step back and think, you know, could this be interpreted as being party political, that you're showing a bias? If so, yeah, take a step back and reconsider your messaging. So you can tag people as well, especially Twitter and Instagram. So you could tag them directly in something that you're writing, or also in an image, or you might share something and tag them underneath just so that they see it, but aren't necessarily the main focus. So that's why we say double check what the handle is. I saw some comments in the chat about the wrong tagging. So in case you weren't aware, someone caught with a Twitter account that was Liz Truss had been mistakenly tagged instead of the Prime Minister, which is @TrussLiz, and global leaders did that by mistake. It may have been planned, I don't know, but personally I've accidentally tagged the wrong Liz Truss in the past and felt very bad, because the person in the pink dress in the profile photo probably didn't expect something about nutrition funding. So it's easier said than done. I've also tagged an unassuming builder in Swansea instead of the MP in Swansea. So from personal experience, checking that you've got the right person is important. I'm just going to stop there because I think we might need to do a quick text switcheroo, which means we'll lose the PowerPoint for a minute, but I can go over the next slide without the slide. So if we just transfer over. So before you post, important things to remember: who is the intended audience? What is the main message of the post? Is the intended message clear? And is there an advocacy objective? So just trying to be more deliberate in what you're posting, who it's trying to reach and what they might get from it. Is what you're trying to say clear? Could it be misinterpreted? And is there an advocacy objective? So I'll stop there to take any questions. Yeah, there's some so in the chat on Twitter you can't edit your posts. Yeah, that's right. So you have to delete and then repost it. Where on Facebook and Instagram you can, but on Twitter, kind of, if you've made a mistake, you just have to delete it and go.
Have you got anything about when the optimum time to post something is, please?
So generally evenings and weekends in the evening, but it depends on your followers. So I think I can find out what site it is, but there is a site where you can check. So if you go on Twitter Analytics, for example, that's a free site. It's linked to your account. And there, I believe there is a way of seeing what time your tweets were most seen. So then when you kind of see if there's a pattern for when they're most seen by your followers, then you could put them at that time.
That's useful.
Yeah, so Twitter Analytics is quite good because it shows you as well how much engagement it is, like it's getting. And then the other thing that you can do with that information is schedule tweets. So if you want
TweetDeck.
On TweetDeck, yeah.
Mm.
So TweetDeck's just for Twitter. There's also one called Hootsuite, which is multiple platforms. Again, we can send these links after. And so if you can see on Twitter Analytics that the tweets getting the most engagement have, you know, multiple tags, a couple of hashtags, and are going out at 5 p.m, then you could schedule for that time. Is that clear? Does anyone have any questions on kind of how the scheduling or the analytics work?
How do you get to Twitter Analytics? Is it off the Twitter site?
Yeah, you can just type in Twitter Analytics and then it will be your normal Twitter profile. So you just log into Twitter Analytics as if you're logging into Twitter.
The Hootsuite, if I got that right, would be really interesting to see how that works practically. That would be great if we had time to do something like that.
I'll admit I'm not a Hootsuite user. I know it exists and I know that in theory it would be useful. The reason that we don't find it the most useful is that, so in theory you can post across all the platforms, so you could do Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, but in reality, as I said earlier, the content that you're putting on each of those sites does vary. So what we put on, if you're putting a message on Twitter that's 200 characters, on Facebook you could write double that and it would still be a good length, and on Instagram you need a pretty picture to go with that. So what we usually use is TweetDeck just for Twitter and make sure that those messages are kind of clear. And yeah, I think Tanya's the Instagram queen. So Tanya, do you use anything to schedule Instagram or not yet?
Not yet. I haven't managed to find anything, but I'll keep a lookout.
Yeah, I think it depends on, different people prefer different things, but for what we use Instagram for, it's not, you know, it's not 5 times a day. So Twitter's a lot more regular for us, like as a results account, and that's when the scheduling is useful. Aurora, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so first of all, I wanted to say that Instagram is really useful if the account for the results Instagram, if it's a business account. So if you create it or switch it over to be a business account, because then you can access all of those analytics. Otherwise you can't as a personal account. That doesn't, so we switched our London one to that. And then Hootsuite, we can't use it, you have to pay for it, because I wanted to use it, but you have to pay for it. So that's not useful.
I think it used to be free, but that's going back a couple of years when I actually
well nowadays there's no free version.
No.
But it is useful in the sense, it would be useful in the sense that it does do that, like you can very easily adapt it to the different formats. So I mean, it makes sense. But then talk about money. If we want to advertise something on the results Instagram, because you can do that, right? Is that something we could request funding from you guys?
Advertise what, for example?
Like an event?
An event?
Yeah.
Potentially, we'd have to check if that is something. Yeah.
Cool. That's something I can request, like, yeah.
Yeah, get in touch with us if you've got kind of a specific thing that you'd want, but either me, Tanya, or Naveed.
Okay,
We talk every day, so if it comes to one of us, usually we'll all chat if it's kind of something about funding. But yeah, in theory, that is something we could support you with.
Cool.
And
because it's really hard to
campaign.
grow the followers. I hope you do something on that as well, because it's so hard to like get engagement in a profile. That I find the hardest. part. That's me.
I've gone into Twitter analytics and I've turned it on, and it tells me how many impressions I've got per day. What does that mean? It says your tweets earned 18.6 thousand impressions over this 28-day period. What does that mean?
So I'd have to double check. So I believe impressions is just that it's seen, and then engagements is people who interact with it. So you get different figures based on, like, if someone scrolled past it, or if somebody's clicked on the link or liked it or shared it. So
yeah, I
you
can
get
see
3
engagement.
columns.
Yes.
But it sounds like very high figures there, Jill.
Yeah, it's interesting. It says it on average it's 664 impressions per day.
That's good.
So people are looking at it, but engagements was 2. Total number of times a user has interacted with the tweet. This includes all clicks anywhere on the tweet. Interesting. I think that must be today.
Yeah, it is. I think you can get quite, I mean, people do social media or one platform full time as a job, so you can really delve into the statistics if you want to. But I think generally, if they're being seen, that's a good first step. And as I've always said, in terms of new people, if you know that they're being seen, that's the best first step. And like paid promotion is a way to get it being seen as well. So I think we'll move on to our first scenario, if that's okay, because some of these questions and like experiences might be good to discuss kind of in this context. So everything just moved around. Hopefully there's a slide up that says scenario 1, members of your results group attend an advocacy day in Parliament, and a lovely photo from our last advocacy day in Parliament with the Brighton group. So essentially we're going to use this as the scenario. So that you or your group have gone or are going to an advocacy day. So have a think, we'll put you into breakout groups and have a think about what content would you share, what platforms do you feel are most appropriate to use, how would you try and share kind of your message, who would you try and share your message with and how, and what would you do once it's posted. So kind of thinking after you've posted it, for example, looking at TweetDeck, or what might be kind of a success and why. But also in terms of the event itself, you can think kind of before and after. So what might you put up before the event, during the event, after the event? So really thinking about how this advocacy activity, which you're already doing, which is going to this event, how can social media then complement that and amplify it and kind of build on to make it more effective? So me and Tanya will be in a group with you as well, so we can go over those questions. And if one person from each group could make a couple of notes to share when we come back about what your kind of mini social media strategy would be in this advocacy scenario, that would be great. Hello, I think we've got everyone back. So hopefully that was a useful discussion in your groups. Would anyone like to share any thoughts? So I know in mine, Josie, you had put you on the spot.
No.
You don't have to say anything, but you had an idea of what an advocacy event on social media.
One thing our group kind of discussed
our conversation mainly focused on Twitter and the idea that you can tag people and say it was great to speak to this person about X, Y, Z, and then hopefully they'll retweet or engage with that post. So just kind of turning it into a conversation on that way, our group thought was important.
I think Ruthie kind of there's a bit.
I think Ruthie's frozen, so I'll take over. So I think for the next question, what did your group talk about for platforms which feel most appropriate for us to use?
Do you want to say something, Ricky?
No, sorry, I unmuted by accident.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, I can go on that one. We talked a little bit about what the different platforms have to offer, what they are. So like Twitter, not that you can't do all of these things kind of on each of them, but Twitter would be the most useful for saying things in the exact moment that they're happening, like, oh, we're heading to Parliament now, hope to see you there to talk about this and that. Or then it was great to talk to you about this and that in Parliament and we count with your support or so on. So really things in the moment, very short and flashy. And then obviously you can also share image there, but image maybe best on Instagram. And then you can use your story as like a more immediate thing and then do a proper post afterwards with the picture that you took with the MP and have a little caption on it. Yeah, and I don't know about Facebook very much, but I guess there you could write some more text.
Yeah, we said the same thing about Twitter, and we also talked about blogs. And Ricky and Karen, their group schedules their blogs for the whole year. They do one a month, so they plan it at the beginning of the year. So they're always putting something up, which is ongoing. And I said that I've got contact with an international online newspaper, Independent Catholic News. And the editor is always looking for articles, so I can always place something there. But that's a personal thing. It's got to have a Catholic bias for it, but it's always possible. We talked a lot about Twitter, didn't we?
Yeah, and you're ahead of the game with the blogs. So I think we'll just go through. You've all shared some ideas. Sadly, I didn't hear them all because my internet dropped off. But it sounds like you've got the idea of how social media could be used around this event. So before the event, you could use it to reach out to the MPs. So the Brighton group did a tweet tagging an MP that they were hoping to see, saying we'd love to see you there. And then afterwards, there was one to thank their MP. So the tweet was thanking Caroline Lucas for meeting some Brighton-based campaigners from Results Brighton, and also the other organisation, one in the UK, the One campaign, who were at the event. And then you can see it's got great to have your support to hashtag end epidemics and call for an ambitious pledge to the Global Fund. So the hashtag end epidemics was part of the broader campaign and the broader advocacy on social media, but also specific to that event. So it was something that everyone who attended was being encouraged to use. It was on the image that Caroline Lucas is holding a board that says, I pledge to hashtag end epidemics. So if there's ever anything like that, it's great to tap into that because it can help the visibility of your tweets, but also connect with other people and kind of amplify the broader message. And Caroline Lucas shared this with a comment, so it was very exciting. So in terms of like thinking, what are you hoping to get out of it? That's obviously an ideal outcome because your MP has noticed you not only at the event, but also taken the time afterwards on Twitter. Again, the idea of sharing images, and if it's something with other organisations or other like-minded people, it's nice to tag them. So that again helps with visibility, helps build that sense of being connected. And just a tip, you can tag up to 10 people in an image. Unfortunately not if you schedule it on TweetDeck, but if you were to put a tweet out with a photo, you could tag up to 10 in the photo itself, which means that if there's more, if you want more space to write something or write in your message in the tweet, you can, because obviously it's limited characters on Twitter. So using some of those characters to say something other than handles is quite a good way to get around that. I'm not sure this is going to load, but the Brighton group did a video. I'll just see if that loads. So they made this for Instagram. No, I think, oh, here it is. So I'll just play this. So there was some clips from their advocacy day, clips of food, clips of them with their MP, the general, like the travel there, really showing that it was a proper day out. And it was made, I think, using TikTok, but I don't think they shared it on TikTok. I think that was just a convenient way. They shared it on Instagram. But I think that sort of thing is especially good for prospective new members of your group to see that you're doing fun things and kind of see what you're getting up to. And then the other, so this is again skipping to the next part of blogs. So after your day of that, you could do a blog, for example, a day in the life of a results advocate, advocacy day at Westminster to end epidemics. So that could be something about your experience there, how it went, and also if you do write a blog, which we'll come on to afterwards, you could use extracts from that and adapt it for local media. So for example, if Jill's writing a piece for the Independent Catholic News, then that could also be adapted for another blog site. Or if you're writing a piece to send to media, like your local newspaper, and it doesn't get picked up, you could adapt that into a blog and vice versa. So unless, if you have any burning questions, feel free to ask or stay on to chat, but we've just got a 5-minute break because we've been talking quite a lot. So feel free to turn your cameras off and have a bit of a break. Or if you want to stay and ask us things, that's also fine. So we'll be back at just before 7:05. No, that's back in time, 8:05. So back at about 8:05. TikTok. I might hand this one over to Tanya, who looked into TikTok earlier this year. It is used a lot by young people, even younger than Instagram. So typical users are kind of teenagers to early 20s. I think it's very visual and it's a bit more of a commitment because you have to put together that there's kind of quite a strong style on TikTok that for us at Results we haven't had capacity to look into and to make content for. But Aurora knows, so Brighton do use it from what she knows. Tanya, did you have anything else on TikTok?
Yeah, I think with TikTok, there's issues around data protection as well, and just kind of what content you'll see on there. Not everything comes with a trigger warning, and you can't always control like the algorithm. So there's quite a lot of criticism that has come out about TikTok, but a lot of people do use it. It is harder to create content on there just because it has to be like full length videos as opposed to like a picture and some text, which is, as Ruthie was saying, a bit more of a commitment. But I guess because it does have so many users, it can be good if used appropriately, and if you are comfortable with using it as well.
Could you use a mobile phone to record videos on it, you know, and upload them?
Yeah, so the footage in the Brighton video was from just their phone. So the clips in the event were from their phone and then put together. So that's another. So if you're at an event, it's much easier to take a photo on a phone and upload that straight on social media than if you take it. So I find if I take on the camera, obviously then I have to plug that into the laptop, get the photo off and upload it. So for events, I tend to take a camera to get a really good quality image that can be shared afterwards and be used for different purposes where you need like something that's good quality, but then also on the phone get something quick and upload it quickly so that it's there.
I made a video because I wanted to send it to one of the FCDO people. I thought, you know, I want to get through, but you're very limited on Twitter on what you can upload.
Yeah, there's a time limit on videos on Twitter. It's like 2 minutes.
So
26 or something specific. So if the video, so some places can share more, but that's because they've got a paid account.
Yeah, I ended up making a YouTube channel. I've discovered I've created a YouTube channel and I've only done one video. I just wanted to find a way to upload it, you know, but I'm sure that there's something to do there, because you could, if you did a blog, you could put a link to the video, couldn't you? But I didn't go any further with that. I don't know whether I could get back into it.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. It was a good video though. It got, didn't it get the FCDO reacted to it, engaged with it on Twitter, I seem to remember, or at least I engaged with it because I thought it was great. But videos do have kind of a bit more a personal touch as well.
I wanted to ask, would it be possible to like share some like TBT, like some old stuff that we haven't shared before? Because we have mostly just very old stuff on the London Instagram. But for example, we didn't share anything about when we did the advocacy day and stuff. So I was gonna just share it in retrospect. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think generally that's fine. It's just about the timing. Like it's best if there's kind of a reason, context. I would say, a context to share it.
But if the thing is, now the Global Fund event's already passed.
It's passed, but the UK haven't yet made a pledge.
So on the day they make a pledge, maybe then that would be the good day.
Yes, that's the kind of thing, like if you want to just share it because it's a nice photo of the group and you want to say, this is the group and this is when we went to London and, you know, like as a results campaigner, yeah, this is the kind of stuff you can do. That obviously isn't context dependent because that's the message is more about you as a group. If you were to mention the Global Fund, I think the timing with that sort of thing, like from an advocacy perspective, is quite important, because if you shared it now saying, you know, oh, we went to this event and we asked them to pledge and all of this, but actually they haven't pledged and we're still waiting on an outcome, and that outcome we don't know, might be that they pledge the amount, unlikely that they'll pledge the full amount, but also likely that they really make a disappointing pledge. So until we know that, I think it's hard to get the message right.
I'll just save those ones for the day. that they do make the pledge, and then we can like reference back. But then I think we took once a picture, we were a smaller group, the other advocacy, that we talked to the MP and to the FCDO officials. We have that picture, which is just with the results banner. That is more of a like, oh, this is the type of thing we do, or just kind of something generic that I can put in, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of picture that I'll be dropping into many things over the next couple of months. It's a nice one if you're all standing there with Parliament in the background and a results banner. So yeah, as a generic image, that's
cool.
Perfect. I know Cheshire, they were one of the first groups to do an in-person event after the pandemic. So the one of the Cheshire group waving in the park crept into quite a few newsletters and social media posts, because again, like, it is, I think that's the other thing, is you don't want to always just be taking photos and focused on that, but on the other hand, it is really good to have some content and like to have in mind, if you're having in mind, how am I going to use social media to amplify this, or can social media be used to further the advocacy that I'm doing? That does also mean, oh, maybe this would be a good photo to get, you know, definitely get one with your MP at this event if you have a meeting with them, that sort of thing. So we're going to get on to the next part. I'm sorry we've run over a little bit, but hopefully it's getting some thoughts going in your minds. But we'll spend the next bit on blogs. So I'll hand over to Tanya for that one.
Yeah. So I only learned this recently, actually, but a blog is short for web log, similar to a vlog, so video log. And it is an online journal or informational website run by an individual or corporation that offers regular updated content about a topic. So they are like a personal online journal for you and your group's opinions or views that is frequently updated and intended for general public consumption. So it's always important to remember who your audience is and who you want to target through a blog. So blogs are defined by their format. They are a series of entries posted to a single page in reverse chronological order so that the most recent blog appears first on your site. So they are useful as an outlet for you to share ideas on more in-depth research and say more in-depth research than a social media post. So you can write blogs on blogging websites. Some organizations allow you to write guest blogs. We have a campaigner who posts blogs on LinkedIn and on results issue areas, or you can create your own website for your results group on WordPress, like our Brighton group. And I'll just post the link into the chat box. I think next slide, please, Ruthie. Thank you. So blogs are similar to social media, and there are many reasons why running a blog site can be beneficial both to your advocacy and your group. So as you can see on the slide, we picked out a few. They can be used to explore issues in more depth because blogs allow you to write about a topic in far more detail than on social media. I think it's the next slide, actually, if there's the list on that one. No, it's not. So writing a blog is a nice reason to do some research into a topic and gain a deeper understanding of something you're interested in. So blogs also enable you to share this research and understanding with your audience and to help them explore that topic too. So it's also useful for reaching new audiences. By sharing your blogs, you might gain the interest of people who hadn't heard of results before. For example, if you share your blogs on social media, you never know who will be interested in the topic you wrote about, and then go and read the blog and then reach out to join results, a bit like a chain. And then third would be showing public support for an issue. So you can use blogs as a way to show public support for the issues that you care about. Once you've written a blog, you could share it with your MP and other decision makers. You could also adapt the blog to use in other media, for example, by writing a short article for a local newspaper. You can amplify your activities using a blog. that you or your group have been doing. So for example, if you attend an advocacy day in Parliament, you could write a blog about the day, what you learned, what you went and did, what actions should be taken next. Also, blogs help to develop group cohesion and individual skills. So having the regular activity of writing blogs can be a fun way to get the whole group together and also gain the interest of individuals who want to develop those skills in blog writing. So it's a great transferable skill to have, and something which prospective members may find appealing to get involved with. You can also collaborate with other results groups and members on a blog, which is an opportunity to get to know and work with fellow campaigners. And another reason to write a blog would be for your CV. So you can, and for to develop those blog writing skills. So many employers value this, and it shows that you are genuinely passionate about the issues in international development, so much that you've gone away and independently researched a topic and written a blog. So remember, before you set up a blog site or write a blog, think about who your target audience is and always have them in mind when posting. I'll post a link in the chat which has kind of all of those separate reasons why it's useful to write a blog, but I'll hand it over to Ruthie to talk about how to set up a blog.
Thank you. Yeah, so just like social media, I'll keep this very brief, but if you have questions, there are plenty of kind of tutorials out there where you can reach out to us. But if you wanted to set up a blog site, again, we're talking mostly as like under the banner of results as a results group, but you could also set up a personal blog site. You can go to one of the many free websites. So WordPress is the example we've used just because personally I'm most familiar with it. And then in the top right hand corner, there's usually an option to get started. And you'll just add in a few details and you can choose a theme. So with a lot of these sites, there's pre-made things that you can choose, like pre-made themes, pre-made structures. And this, so here's a screenshot of the back end of WordPress. So when you're the admin of the site, you have a menu on the left-hand side where you can go on the home page and see how it is. There's an option to see some of the statistics of the blogs. And then there's a tab called Pages. And it's literally as easy as adding a new page. And then you can write your blog, you can schedule them, or you can save them for later in drafts. And they have usually quite like a block format. So you can add text, add an image, add text, add an image, or have it all as text. So yeah, I think the main thing to get across here is that it's pretty straightforward. Just double check all the settings, check that you're happy with like the privacy and publicity settings. Try and like have a theme that you're happy with, that looks appealing but also is easy to use. And that's the basics of setting up a blog site. Kids.
So I think we'll go to the next slide for writing an effective blog. So often to write something that's compelling to read, you need that magnetic headline to draw the reader in. So something clear and concise so people know exactly what the issue area the article will be about. You need a compelling lead. So the first sentence or short paragraph at the start of your blog to compel visitors to then go on to read the second and the third and so on. Useful subheadings to break up the page and to make the page more visually appealing. They help your reader navigate to the important sections, and they boost search engine optimization. So useful things that come up in Google when you just type in keywords. Informative and engaging body. So the body is the meat and potatoes of your blog post. It is important to be clear and concise and back what you're saying with evidence and provide your sources. So remember to be engaging and try and build paragraphs through point, evidence, explain, so that it's not too rambly. to use appealing graphics. It's a great idea to include graphics in your blog post to illustrate points and break up the text within the body of the article to make your pages more visually pleasing. You just have to remember to credit the images that you use and check copyright as well. And then the relevant, powerful call to action. So every blog sorry, it's a bit of a tongue twister. So every blog post should have a call to action. And your first step is to decide what action you want your visitors to take after reading your blog. It might even be as simple as to leave a comment, and to include the relevant internal links. So links to other articles that you have used, and to share and spread different kinds of information. And this also helps kind of give greater depth at different viewpoints to the research, and it brings more life to the kind of discussion when you also link to different people's like articles and things like that throughout. Next slide, please. So I think some questions you should always be asking yourself as well when you're going through the process of writing a blog is, what is the objective and what is the purpose? So why you have decided to choose that topic, and is it to raise awareness? Is it to promote action? Or is it even just to share your interest? What is the main message of the blog? And who is the target audience? So who are you aiming to target might change depending on the style of writing you use. For example, if you're writing for the general public, you might need to explain your acronyms in more depth and use accessible language. And this is good practice anyway. But if you are writing for an audience specialized in the world of international development, for example, then you might go in depth and into complex issue areas that you wouldn't if your target was just sharing with the general public. What are the key points on context for the blog? Context is important to explain why your issue area is important, especially why now. What questions might the audience have about the content and message? So what things do you need to explain in greater detail and really flesh out? What tone of voice do you want to adopt on the site as well? So blogs give you the opportunity to explore topics in more depth, but always think about whether it is the right option, e.g. would a Twitter thread be enough, or a media piece be more effective than a blog? Next slide, please. I think we'll go straight to the scenarios.
I think so. Basically, scenario 2 was based on something that I think we don't really have time to cover, which is guidelines of when you're posting under the results name, under the results banner, what is and isn't appropriate to post. Because obviously we encourage you to use your voice for change, but sometimes there are things that you might want to say, or you might want to say them in a certain way that isn't really appropriate when it's associated with results. But we've just produced some social media and blog guidance, which kind of goes through that, gives examples of how, like, what is and isn't okay to say. I mean, mostly it's going to be okay, but for example, as I mentioned earlier, being party political is a red line that can't be crossed if you're using the red logo of results, just because it could jeopardize like our political neutrality as an organization. But I think instead of going over that now, we'll make sure that you get the links to that afterwards, and if you have questions, just reach out. So that was scenario 2. So I think if we go to scenario 3 just for a couple of minutes whilst we're in a big group. So Tanya, do you want to introduce what this one is about?
Sure. So I think this one's about, you want to try and raise awareness of for our October education campaign. So I think on the next slide, there's some questions similar to the ones we've seen before. So what content would you share? What platforms do you feel are most appropriate to use for the education action? Who would you try and share it with, and how? What would you do once posted, e.g. monitoring, considering the success of the content, and why? also think about both social media and blogs now. So which one's most appropriate for this education action? Do you think a bit of both, or just social media, or writing a blog? What kind of blog would you write? So I'll post those questions into the chat and we'll just discuss them together as a group.
So does anyone have any thoughts on if you were trying to promote that action? So if we start with blogs, because you chatted about social media before, what kind of blog might you write, and how would you then kind of use that to complement your other advocacy actions?
I think if this were a blog, that suggests quite a lot of content, and you can go into, you know, some of the nitty gritty. So for our monthly action, results always sends out an action sheet. And that's basically what it is. It's a blog. So you could do worse than just take that and publish it. I guess that's not really what you're thinking of, is it? But yeah, that's the kind of, for me anyway, that's the kind of, because it's got a call to action. It's got some facts and figures that are really interesting and relevant, and quite often it's got some pictures. So you might want to kind of make an anagram of it so that it's kind of matches your style and that sort of thing. Any thoughts?
Yeah, by all means, like you can use the campaign materials and use some of that content. I'd say, like, in terms of, I mean, I like to think that we write in engaging ways, but I think blogs sometimes can be even more on the informal, engaging end of the spectrum. So you could maybe take what we provide and use some of that information and content and facts and figures and links and things, but just, I would say, if there's like some of the blogs that are most powerful, or if they've got a slightly more personal touch to them, not always, like you don't have to, you can write very informative blogs like, this is what's happening and this is why we're doing advocacy on this and here's a call to action. But I know Jill and yourself, Vicky, when you've written some blogs before, and sometimes when you weave in like why you care about it or what got you involved or how that links to experiences you've had, it kind of,
I suppose, yeah, you could say that the online newspaper article is a blog. It's an article in a newspaper, but like in 2014 we did results did a fundraising thing called Footsteps for Futures about children, and we were asked to set up a blog, and I did one on WordPress, and I did about 6 blogs, and I haven't done any since, but I've still got the login things for it. So it's called Footsteps for Futures. I could set it up again and use it, but as I say, I just tend to write the article, you know. But it's good to have a hook, as you say, you know, something that's personal to you, why it's important to you. I think. I don't know. I was told that to run a successful blog, you had to post every day for 90 days to get people looking at it. And I found that a bit daunting. So I'm afraid I haven't been back to it since 2014. But I'm still going into it.
You could write 90 days worth of blogs in advance, couldn't you? Like that might take you a year, and then you could spend 90 days.
Yeah.
And then one after the other.
Yeah, but maybe you've got more idea, Ricky. Has anybody else done a blog?
I'd like everybody else to have a say, yeah.
Think, sorry, even if you haven't written a blog, do you have an idea of what you might write? or what content you would share.
I'm just trying to think of the words that you do. You state the problem, and that I can't remember it. What is the anagram?
It's EPIC. Karen will tell you what it stands for.
EPIC. That's right. Engage.
What's the problem?
State the problem.
Impact, and what's the call to action?
Yeah, information, and then the call to action.
And Ariane's just put in the chat global health topics to raise awareness. So yeah, that could lend itself very well to a blog. If you were to write a blog about global health topics with the aim of raising awareness, have you got any ideas then how you would use social media to complement your blog? So in terms of like publicizing your blog and getting it out there.
Yeah, sorry, I was just writing, but I was gonna say like sorry, I'm still talking about the global health. So I would also analyze NGOs or global organizations' response. So I could talk about like call of action, like what is needed. And I think for blogs, it's very hard to put it out there if you're just an individual. But I think building up or raising an awareness through platforms such as like TikTok, because if you talk about it, you could attract the right audience, or even on social media, or just like asking people to reshare it that have access to the community you want to reach out to.
Yeah, it's definitely not as easy as like writing one blog on WordPress and you're suddenly going to get thousands of viewers, or you might if you're lucky. But I think some of our groups that write blogs share them on, well, they share them on their social media. Sometimes they might adapt it for like a student newspaper or another local media outlet. But I think the thing sometimes with blogs as well is that people enjoy doing it. And, you know, advocacy, we often think about reaching decision makers and how we're going to get our MP to listen. But actually, if you're doing something that is keeping you motivated and interested, that's still part of being an advocate, right? Because that's going to keep you going. Or if you're doing something that's building you as a group because you're writing a blog together, that can help then build momentum for future. So yeah, I think like you're absolutely right in those suggestions. And I just thought I'd add on those kind of other reasons that not to be disheartened if your blog's not getting many reads, because actually there's other benefits often to writing them. I mean, I love writing blogs. I have a blog site that like my mum and a couple of friends look at, but I think one day I'll do something more with it. And yeah, thanks for that, Ariane. I think we're going to have to wrap up actually, so I'll just hand back to Tanya. And
yeah, so I think we've run out of time, but it was lovely to see all of you here. We will share the resources with you from the PowerPoint, and we will also share some top tips, so keep an eye out for them, both on social media and a separate one for blogs. We'll also share the social media guide, which Ruthie has very kindly been working on and has been working on very hard, and the blog guide as well. And we will also send you the links for the national conference session of 2021, which is useful for more advice on social media sharing. So I think that's it, and I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope you found it useful as well.
Very good. Yeah.
thank
Lots of things to explore. Thank you, especially the blog one.